Alright, hello. We have Mushoku Tensei. And, this is basically, jobless magician in another world. He's a shut-in who sacrifices himself to, push some high schoolers out of the way. And he gets hit by the truck, because that's how most of the isekai happen, is Truck-kun decides it's time to send somebody on a trip. As he's dying, he, kind of bemoans the fact that his life was not a very good one, since he was a 34-year-old who, was, turned into a shut-in for various reasons. So when he wakes up, he finds out that he's been basically reincarnated into the body of a newborn or a 1-year-old. So we don't really know whether or not, he was already in the... how do you want to put it? Some of these reincarnations, they have, the person wakes up in the body of a 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old had, a fatal disease or something, so technically, the spirit that was, the soul of the person that was there before, they die and their life ends, but before the body expires, the soul of the transmigrator appears and takes over, and somehow, the disease or whatever it was that was there to claim a life is not there anymore, to kill another soul, as it were. This main character shows up in kind of a newborn body. I think in the manga they make it seem like he's past the birth stage, so it's within the first year of being born, something happens so that the previous resident of that body leaves, or perhaps in the mythology of this world, the soul doesn't actually occupy the body of the newborn until a certain time. I mean, it's possible. There are some traditions in the world where you don't give a child a name until they've reached a certain age, because back in the day, diseases and stuff would kill kids like nobody's business so quick that you didn't bother giving a name to something that was only going to be there for a couple months. And it sounds really it's some rough stuff to talk about, but that's one of the things that used to happen. You didn't earn a name until they were kind of convinced that you were going to stick around for a while, So that could be also the issue. This world, this isekai that he's gone to, maybe one that the soul doesn't even bother to pop into the body until a certain age. Who knows? Anyhow, continuing, the story is, it's one that I got hooked into just, for the idea that, this is a shut-in who desperately wants to be better. They have all these flaws that they've recognized in themselves, and they want to they're going to be conscious of all these personal faults and try to correct them and get better. The beginning of the story, though, is it's a 1-year-old, a baby, and going from baby times to, being in puberty and all that stuff. There's this whole section where it's from the ages of 1, 2, 3, up to 5 years old, where the themes and stuff are more suited for a much older group of people, to put this very nicely. Because at the age of 2, he steals some undies from somebody with, less than pure intent behind the stealing of the undies. It's a 2-year-old. Physically, spiritually, he's 34. But, no. There's... I can't... It's not okay. And apparently the light novels are worse like the first. So there's a part of me that feels like if you do read this, maybe you just need to figure out where it is that, like, the really cringy stuff stops, and then you can read from past that point. But then, is that not just the same as, hitting the skip button on a streaming thing until you hit the good part, quote unquote, of the story? So yeah, I feel weird recommending you read from the beginning, but it's from the literary fairness standpoint, you should just read from the beginning, even though it's creepy. But the whole situation there, where he has all these deep flaws. He was a NEET, so he was basically terrified of going outside the house, is one example. And there's this great moment where he is, confronting that inner demon. And they do this whole thing of, like, kind of showing, like, right behind the kid, like, the spirit, that's being portrayed as that 34-year-old person freaking out about the whole idea that, like, I got to a point where, like, being inside the house was that was safe. That was my security place. If I go outside, if I cross that threshold, the dangers that I've been hiding from, the pain and the bullying and all that kind of stuff is, it's going to get me. Those things, those unknown, those fears of whatever it is that motivates you to shut yourself in could get me, but he forces himself with the help of, his loved ones to go across that boundary. And they don't know, like, his loved ones don't know that he has all these internal struggles, and he has, like, 34 years worth of trauma that he's trying to overcome as, like, a 5-year-old. But, that there are these really interesting moments of self-growth where they go into these references of the experiences of the past, and, like, kind of how he got to that low point, or undesirable kind of character trait, and the fact that he has made this decision to try and become better, and correct these kinds of issues within himself. A little bit of it is far-fetched in the sense that sometimes it's all him motivating himself to overcome some of these kind of deeply rooted issues that he has that would probably need some therapy, if to be honest, if you really want to get through it. And the fact that, like, he has all these other, supporting characters that have character flaws that they also, overcome through these kind of, some chapters are pretty much just devoted to that, of kind of looking at how certain actions are perceived by other people and how those people can come to reconcile with them. Because there was a really nice kind of full of feels arc, we'll call it, in the sense of he has siblings that he doesn't see. Like, he leaves to go to college or go to university or whatever you want to call it. Goes to magic school right after his siblings are born, and they don't see him until much later. And then they have to reconcile with the fact that they have a sibling that cares for them deeply that they've never met. And young people, like, if they don't, if you don't have that connection with them when they're very, very young, then sometimes it's really difficult for them to wrap their minds around the idea that you are a valuable and, significant member of that, nuclear family area, we'll call it, of the relationships. And, every character in this series has some kind of mistake they make that they are trying to, they'll make it during the story or before the story, but, there's always some kind of interesting kind of story arc involved with these individuals attempting to overcome them and get better. Something I wasn't aware of before making this video was that there's actually a second series that they made, which is, it's a different mangaka, I believe, than from the main line. But the art is, they managed to maintain the art style fairly well. And it's actually called Mushoku Tensei, the story of the depressed magician, which is really, it's straight to the point, because it follows apparently exclusively the story arc of novel number 7 of the light novel series, where basically they go hard. They start real early with chapter 1. One of his main love interests in the series has kind of confessed to him, or they've confessed to each other, and they have their we had our lovey-dovey moment in the bed, and we're gonna wake up the next day for the happy ever after, or what are we going to do next, honey, kind of good times story. But he wakes up the next morning, chapter 1 wakes up the next morning, and there's a note by the bed of sorry, I realize that I'm not strong enough to be with you, or some kind of a thing like that, and I have to go on a trip. Goodbye. She pieces out, and there's a pile of hair on the bed or on the floor, where she cuts her hair to be bob head, or not bob head, but bob cut, or she shaved her head, who knows. Point is, peace out note and a pile of hair is what he woke up to, instead of the smiling face of the person who confessed to him. So the big sad hits, and hits hard, and it's done in such a way that you occasionally see color in the manga. The first few chapters, I haven't finished it. I've only gotten partway through, and it's ongoing, so it's not even done. But it's black and white, standard, but they inject a couple panels with color in it occasionally, and not all color, but just certain colors. And that's really, really effective. It's really got a punch to it when you're thinking from the reading through this from the standpoint, from the emotional space of someone who is, in the big sad, and dealing with, people around them that they also have to struggle with the fact that he's depressed. Their friend is depressed, and depressed people tend to do a really good job of pushing people away, making themselves not somebody you want to be around. So their tenacity is something to be applauded. But this is, this whole issue of people who are not depressed a lot of times are not very understanding of or sympathetic to what it means when someone is depressed, and that you can't just shout at them to make them feel better, or, just stop being sad. That doesn't work, but there are these moments you can see that in the early chapters that there's some people that are kind of being like that, where they're just angry with this guy who's not, being a sociable, nice person right now. And how come you can't be better? And it's well, it's really hard to figure out what could be done to assist in a way that's going to allow that person to dig themselves out of the funk. Because when the big sad hits, it's not, it's really easy basically for all stimuli to just be new fuel for that big sad to keep being sad or get even bigger. So I am actually more interested in reading this offshoot manga that I didn't even know was around, that's focusing on that one story arc related to basically being depressed and moving forward while being depressed, because I don't know if he actually fixes it during that story arc or not. or it's just him being mopey the whole time, which might be heavy and might be too much for some people, but who knows? It could be too much for me. I don't know. But I've got this, there's 2 series based off of one set of web novels that I'm really into at the moment that I need to finish, getting to the end of both, to see what I think about it. Because so far they're both very engaging with how they're kind of dealing with someone who was not well and is not well, and that they're self-aware of the fact that they're not well and would like to not be in that situation that they're in. So, yeah, I encourage you to check these out. But I'm warning you, it's going to be some heavy stuff. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also have a website you can go to with a Shopify account, so you can buy pretty much any of the manga that we talk about or you see on the website. Please come down and visit us in Waikiki. We're located at Eaton Square.